What is good, people? We are back at it again. This is another boxing reaction. Now, today we got George Foreman. People have been saying in the comments that they want me to do a reaction to a George Foreman documentary in those videos. So let's get right to it, man.
The devastating power of George Foreman is something of a legend.
Big George Foreman. In his career,
Big
he's
George
the
Foreman.
baleful
Head
stare
ass.
of the man who once was his boxing hero, Sonny Liston.
Before Mike Tyson,
Oof.
there was Foreman,
Oh my
a mountain
God.
of a man who scared opponents and spectators alike.
Hit it, and he is knocked out. George Foreman wins his first professional fight.
He claimed what was once considered the greatest prize in sports, twice, as two different fighters, two different human beings.
Damn. That's the before and after was crazy.
Raised in Houston's 5th Ward,
An infamously impoverished community riddled with crime and
It's
violence.
such a shame when you're so poor and you don't want everyone else to know that you're so poor.
Damn.
Really, you're not poor, you're po.
it was here Foreman
Hey.
became the king of the street fight.
Because I kept fighting, getting into fights, picking on people, pushing around. I was a bully.
Foreman found refuge and purpose inside the square circle. He began training at age 17.
Then all of a sudden, you get into boxing where anger is applauded.
Who got you involved in boxing?
There was a trainer, Doc Broder.
The 1968 Olympics were only a year away, but Doc promised to make George one hell of a boxer.
As a young man, he was regarded as one of boxing's most brutal
He hitting that
contenders.
shit.
Sparring sessions
Damn,
aren't just
why
a
that
training
sound like
routine.
that?
They are instead
That's him
intense
hitting a
efforts by
person?
sparring partners to simply survive
Oh
a
my
3-minute
God.
round with a man whose punching power is frightening.
Ooh.
1967, I had my first boxing match.
Well, as you have seen, we have some young bombers to prepare for the Summer Olympic Games in boxing.
I won it by knockout. It inspired me to be going to be a Golden Glove champion in San Francisco.
First time I'd ever heard his name. George was brand new. He had only been in a boxing ring for a couple of months at that time.
George raced through the Golden Gloves and into the Olympics,
A jolting right hand to the jaw.
where his uncanny power was too much for even the veteran fighters.
George Foreman wins the gold medal of the 19th Olympiad.
For Foreman, boxing was a means to lift himself out of poverty.
How much Foreman has progressed since his Olympic days remains to be seen.
You know, even though you were having all this professional success at that time, you were pretty angry.
In his first 40 fights, he knocked out 92.5% of his opponents.
Foreman with a left that is like a lamppost. A recurring piston, if you will.
He moving too. That's the thing that's crazy. He moving.
Sonny Liston
Oh
first,
my
then
God.
George Foreman, who was like an improvement on Sonny Liston, and then Mike Tyson.
George mimicked his persona after the great Sonny Liston.
I met Sonny Liston. He became my role model. He had to be the most angry fella I'd met. He'd look right through you.
And that Sonny Liston video was good too.
He had this very forbidding, intimidating, utterly hostile manner about him.
I came to believe early on that George had acquired some of Sonny's characteristics directly from Sonny. He learned how to glower, and he learned how to punch.
George is doing his best imitation of Sonny Liston. All of a sudden, you have this stare coming at you.
George Foreman.
He wanted to scare his opponents, to be seen as a monster.
Oh, George.
It worked.
Ooh.
Bothers him a little bit. The left hand staggers him.
Oh, when I was in the ring, you really saw the best of me. Outside the ring, I was really some terrible fellow because I did some things to people that mostly... In the ring, I'm not ashamed of my boxing matches, but outside the ring, some of the things...
Oh, he saw his body
I'm
bang?
ashamed of to this day.
He can't do anything at all.
God. Look at that shit. That was... He clotheslined
Fight
him.
in the second round.
Oh.
George pulverized.
I thought that with my fist, I could knock any man out.
The media, his peers, and the fans all viewed him as the villain, the monster. who hurt and
I did
punished
not
his
know that
foes
about George
with
Foreman.
remorse.
Foreman's dynamite power in both
Like,
hands.
I thought George Foreman was just like a teddy bear figure. Cause the only thing I know from George Foreman is like the grills and shit. Like he was, when I was growing up, George Foreman was the happy old dude in the grill commercials. I didn't know that people was terrified of George Foreman.
Is making him the scourge of the heavyweight division. George Foreman is now the #1 contender for the heavyweight championship. And the question is, who's going to stop this Foreman steamroller? It looks like Muhammad Ali and even champion Joe Frazier will have to make room for this Houston Tornado, George Foreman.
In his first title fight, Foreman would be pitted against fan favorite Joe Frazier.
Frazier had recently defeated Muhammad Ali
Frazier video was
and was
fire
viewed
too.
as the far superior boxer.
Who y'all want me to do next? I did Rocky Marciano, I did Joe Frazier, I'm doing George Foreman, and I did Sonny Liston. Give me another boxer y'all want me to react to.
Scoring 34 knockouts. He's 6'4" and has a reach of 78 and a half
He was only
inches.
6'4"? Them dudes was little back then.
Because Joe Frazier had
much
beaten
bigger than
Muhammad
everybody.
Ali and was undefeated. They didn't see how this young kid could win.
He was undefeated and was coming off the Ali win, and he was a 3.5 to 1 favorite.
I must break you.
Oh. Oh.
Frazier went down.
And then he's got these hands that are literally like canned hams.
Yep.
And he just...
George was powerful. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he was out there to get me.
His power seemed to be a weapon unlike any the sport had seen. Even the greatest of boxers could not stand up to him.
Fucking Joe Frazier up out there.
It was absolutely devastating. No one could believe it. And from that point on, George was regarded as invincible.
I can believe it. How many times did he knock him out?
He was dropping death charges on me, man. I couldn't survive him.
Foreman demolished the great Joe Frazier, knocking him down 6 times.
6 times?
You've been known as the hardest puncher ever.
Frazier's never taken this kind of punishment.
All I had was this one punch. And if I could hit you with it, I would hit you with it.
That
I'd
nigga
take you out. If I
bounced, he
missed
hit him
you,
so hard.
you'd win on decision.
It's target practice for George Foreman.
And remember how he knocked Joe Frazier upside his head when Joe Frazier literally tried to run away from him?
Oh my God.
The winner is George Foreman.
This nigga's terrible.
To be heavyweight champion of the
George
world,
Foreman is
as soon as it
terrifying.
happens to you, it's like John L. Sullivan.
And he
Broderick,
knocked him. He
all of
knocked him
Joe
out 6
Louis,
times in 2
Rocky
rounds.
Marciano, Mohammed. It's like they all just pour right into you.
Hold
You
on.
feel that
Hold on. Let me know. Was I tripping when I saw that on the screen? Did George Foreman knock out Joe Frazier 6 times in 2 rounds, and had him running like that in 2 rounds? Nah.
You feel I am
that
the
Ali
heavyweight
fight was
champion
fixed,
of the
man.
world.
George
Had
was
to
now
be.
a celebrity, and the couple was besieged by reporters.
It's that those guys weren't Tony Tubbs and guys like that. It was Joe Frazier and Kenny Norton.
Yes.
Frazier had split 2 fights with Ali.
I never thought that Mike Tyson was the scariest, in his prime, the scariest fighter. The person that I thought about was George Foreman.
Well, to be a boxer, number one, you got to be stupid. You got to halfway be crazy.
We think we are likely to have a slugfest. We don't expect the fight to go all the way.
Oh,
and that quick punishing right floors him for the 2nd time.
Any of his fights, when he scored those big knockouts, he would really brutalize the guy before he got him out of there.
Oh!
Final knockdown takes place. Look at Roman's eyes, utterly glazed. Foreman with that impassive face. Now, Foreman's being acknowledged as the winner. Roman still cannot get up.
Kenny Norton had split 2 fights with Ali, 24 rounds, and Ali was lucky to win the 2nd one, and he broke Ali's jaw, and Foreman knocked them both out in 2 rounds.
And then turned around and lost to Muhammad Ali in
12 rounds on a split decision back in September. Combination of cheers and catcalls. Definitely the favorite here. As far as the crowd is concerned, is Ken Norton. As far as the odds are concerned, it's George Foreman.
The most menacing heavyweight of all time. It would be George Foreman.
I was going to be the best heavyweight that ever existed.
That he is with Ken Norton, and the reason for that, of course, is that he doesn't like George Foreman one bit. Do you really believe, Ali, that he can beat this man?
Yeah, the man went 24 rounds with me, broke my jaw in the first round. I was in shape to sack him fight.
In those days, he was a bully. The people around him were afraid of him. Foreman had really brutalized the people who trained him, and they were terrified of him.
Given the hell he gave me, as fast as I am, as accurate as I am, I couldn't whoop Ken Norton.
I had beaten the best in Joe Frazier. No doubt about it, I had beaten the best. People had something to say about that. I said, you know what? I'm going to kill one of these fellows. Then they'll shut up.
And it looks like Norton has really been staggered.
Foreman was a guy who destroyed Frazier, destroyed Kenny Norton.
Oh my!
Kenny Norton out easily.
Once again, Muhammad Ali found himself in great demand. The WBC and the WBA mandated the fight. The public certainly wanted it, and the media clamored for it.
I've watched 5 or 6 boxing videos, and I have been terrified of every single one of those dudes. They all could fuck me up. Faster than he doing this to the rest of these professional dudes. The way this man is hitting these people, I am afraid for them. I feel like I'm watching a murder, fam. The way he's hitting these people, man. This is not okay.
I think George Foreman will knock Muhammad Ali out, and it'll end Muhammad Ali's career.
Other boxers were scared. Handlers were scared. The only person that didn't appear scared of Foreman was Ali.
The Foreman that fought Ali, 40-0, 37 knockouts. Unbeatable. The guy's never going to lose.
Everybody was scared, but Muhammad Ali himself.
Man, this fight had to be fixed, man. This reminds me of the Ali movie with Will Smith. I know this was the actual thing, but that's what I know it from. Ali, boom, by
talkers in their ring. No one never get a chance to talk much. By the time you get to know a fella, it's all over.
As for the fight itself, discussion centered not on who would win, but on how much punishment Foreman would dish out.
The time may have come to say goodbye to Muhammad Ali.
And now we understand that George Foreman is about to make his way to the ring.
Because very honestly, I don't think he can beat George Foreman.
Cosell was convinced that Ali was washed up.
This is a spectacle, dude. They don't have stuff like this nowadays.
This guy was the closest
the
thing
biggest
to a human
championship
monster
fights ever.
I'd
Don't
ever
even
seen
get this
before.
big.
He was certainly the scariest boxer.
Look at this now as they stare. Muhammad Ali beginning to talk to George Foreman. They're really putting the stare on each other.
I looked him in the eye to stare him down and said, "Oh, George, you were in school when I was beating Sonny Liston."
Gone in the past 4 years beyond 2 rounds in any fight. Hand thrown by George Foreman.
He knew that the one weakness in this monster, who was thought of as unbeatable, was his stamina.
The first round, all of us yelled out, "Get off the ropes." And he would just say, "Shut up, I know what I'm doing."
Well, I would say that the round was very even for that scene.
And Ali totally got into the guy's head, and he didn't even realize it.
Oh, man. Ali didn't really beat him, though.
Mind created the rope-a-dope.
Here we go, round number 2 to determine Ali. Get off his stool in between rounds. George Foreman sat down all the way. Ali leans on the rope. Switched to the tee, fighting him.
Starting second, third round, when he went to the ropes, he was calling Foreman all kinds of names. Any name of ugliness you can think of.
Definitely serious. Tremendous combination.
He fought just like your initial bump, just lay on the rope and take it with him. But this time he did it with character. He said, "Hey, I'm going to weather the storm."
The rope-a-dope was something that was invented by Muhammad Ali that night.
I must say, I don't understand those tactics, Joe, of staying on the ropes and letting him hit
It just shows you the power of intellect and intelligence and how that can compete against anything.
Hey,
believe me, I was a
what
big-
Stephen A. just said, I didn't even realize that when you think about it. Like, yeah, he outsmarted him, but in a way that he kind of like outsmarted the entire world at that time. Like they were saying, they were telling him get off the ropes. He like, I know what I'm doing. Like nobody actually thought he was trying to win the fight. Maybe they thought he was trying to survive, you know? But he had a whole plan. Tire this nigga out, and we gonna leave out of here. Can't knock it.
Giant in the ring with Muhammad. I mean, a knockout artist. He stood up to me.
Foreman setting him up against the rope. What a... Look at him whispering in the ear of Foreman.
George Foreman, so young, so strong.
Not supposed to do, leaning up against the rope. 4 punches downstairs on Ali.
So fearless.
I had him beat. I really did. And really thought I had him beat up in the body, had him tired.
Continues to talk, continues.
Against George Foreman, he does away with his opponents, one after another, in less than 3 rounds.
George not going that type of distance a long time. He was treading in water, never been in before.
This is the furthest that George Foreman has gone.
Ali has size too. That's a big part of it too. He's not that much smaller than George
Ali is
Foreman.
definitely confusing him.
Missing the shots that he missed, it drained him.
Look at Foreman's face. He does look tired.
Nobody knew the strength of Muhammad Ali. He was manhandling him, just like Archie said, grabbing him, and he emptied the guy's tank.
I was afraid he was going to get killed by a George Foreman that many of our young viewers don't know.
Oof. There you go, Ali.
I thought he was hurt. I thought his body was hurt. He came back. He hit Foreman with everything, and he winked at me.
Yes, there's no doubt about it. He winked right over here to this corner.
You know, the guy really was the people's choice, and he was the people's choice because he loved them.
Yes, I'd hate to predict any fight, but my goodness, those people who said Foreman would win in a flash have certainly been proved wrong.
Then about the 7th round, he asked me, "That all you got, George?" That was like a nightmare.
I couldn't believe it. I just knew I was going to knock him out in a few seconds. And after 8 rounds, down I'm laying on the canvas, listening to a referee. I was embarrassed.
Oof. Oof, oof. Decision. God damn. That's crazy because he didn't hurt him that much. He was just gassed crazy to the point where he couldn't even defend himself anymore. That's crazy. When you hear the backstory of some of these things, you just hear like the rope-a-dope, what he did. I saw the movie, obviously, but you don't really get the psychology or the whatever you want to call it of what he actually did. That's crazy, man. We got to hear more about what happened to George Foreman after this, because I don't know.
And the most
only thing I know about is grills, man.
Lose the coveted heavyweight championship of the world. I'd worked so hard to get it. And it doesn't, your life is going to change once more from all of this confidence and to devastation.
He was beaten mentally more than physically.
Come home and I was angry for a long time. I figured I'd been betrayed by my managers. I'd been given things in my water, the ropes were loose. I had all the kind of excuses that filled me with hatred and revenge. I felt like I'd lost everything, not just the championship of the world, but I'd lost myself as a man.
Many have felt that Foreman's psyche was materially damaged by the disaster in Zaire of 15 months ago. Foreman's stamina having become suspect in the Zaire affair.
After the defeat, the mystique of Foreman had vanished.
The intimidating bully destroyer of worlds persona was replaced by questions about Foreman's boxing skills.
If Foreman is to come back and get another shot at the crown, he must win this fight, and it would help to win it impressive. The face of George Foreman, and for that matter of Ron Lyle, each speaking for itself. Just look at this.
He would immediately be tested by fellow brawler Ron Lyle.
We're about to bring you what we think promises to be a slugfest, a legitimate heavyweight contest.
One of the great back-and-forth wars in boxing history.
Oh!
A good right by Lyle, and he's got Foreman in trouble. He's got him in trouble.
I was hit so hard I didn't
George?
even feel it.
Oh, George, put your hands up.
Foreman is down. It started with a right, then a left.
I've never been hit so hard in my life.
Now Foreman's fighting back. Foreman trying to hold
Okay,
together.
George.
Now George struck back. Now.
Okay, George.
Now George fought back with a magnificent right.
If every boxing match, world title match, would have ended like George Foreman, Ron Lyle heavyweight title match, there wouldn't be any UFC.
Some punches, and just speaking in general terms, you said some punches are so ferocious that they don't hurt. They actually will interrupt communication between the tower and the ground.
Foreman goes down. Foreman goes down. Lyle fights back.
And then if only it had hurt, I would not have gotten up. It was like you are no longer the same person. You see your legs wiggle, and you're not in control of yourself.
Now Lyle is hurt. Now Lyle is hurt. What an incredible fight. Utterly without boxing skill. Just punching away. Each fighter in turn leaving himself open.
Damn. He just hit me.
This time it may be over. This time it may be over.
Lyle's not going to make it, Howard. He's not going to make it.
A knockout in the 5th round.
He won in
That was only 5
fashion,
rounds?
But the rematch with Ali was not given.
George, you think Ali's maybe backing down from another meeting with you?
There's no telling what he's doing.
I would love a rematch.
I was fueled by a lot of
Ali
anger.
ain't want to give him a rematch.
And I walked around with that for years.
What am I watching right now? Joe Frazier?
Instead, he would do battle with Joe Frazier again.
Joe Frazier got to be old as hell in this fight.
It went much like the first fight.
Oh. Come on, Joe. Come on, Joe. You don't need this in your life.
In the 5th round by a technical knockout and dreams a whole new dream. Another match against Muhammad Ali.
In my mind, there only exists one piece of tension, and that's for the heavyweight championship of the world. And I would like to avenge the only defeat I ever had against you know who. I'm not going to give him no publicity.
Still, the rematch with Ali was not given.
Why?
George's love for the sport of boxing had begun to wane. He would lose a close decision to Jimmy Young.
And Jimmy Young said he had a religious experience after the loss to Young. Others called it heat frustration in Puerto Rico in 1977.
And then he would retire, unceremoniously.
And everybody, oh, that's okay, man. You know, you'll come back. It was just a fight. But then all of a sudden, things started happening in that room.
He was rushed to the hospital, and the press was told that Foreman had become overcome by the heat. But George felt he had suffered more than a momentary blackout.
The feared brute, known as Big George Foreman, disappeared from the public consciousness.
Really? Yo. These documentaries are actually really dope. I didn't know any of this stuff about George Foreman. From the beginning, I didn't know any of this stuff. This, to me, this is probably I don't know if it's better than a Sonny Liston one. But this, man, dang, it's crazy.
During a 10-year break from boxing, George Foreman contemplated what Ali had taken from him.
One of the beautiful things that he did is he acknowledged the ability of Muhammad Ali and acknowledged that loss and put a shrine up in his home.
This is the proof that I was in the fight with him. Punched me right on the eye. I started to not only be happy about my life, but be happy about the life I lived before, and put them together and become an evangelist.
14 years ago, Foreman retired from boxing to preach the word of God.
The little fame and fortune we get is not going to follow us in the grave, brother, sister.
Became a pastor in his faith, serving as a minister for the next 10 years.
During that 10-year absence, you don't go to his church and act crazy. George Foreman will fuck you up.
10 years, I didn't even shadow box.
He became a terrific father.
You've got 5 sons, 5 daughters. I know you're very proud of all of them. They're all named George.
I named all my sons George Edward Foreman.
In 1984, he had started the George...
Oh shit! Oh shit! This nigga's a fool. Oh, I feel like I'm finna start. I feel like I'm finna. Oh my god! This nigga, all his sons is named George Foreman? Get the fuck out of here. Man, stop it, man. George a fool for this one, man. You a fool for that. Come on now. Come on, George. All of them? Stop it, man.
Foreman Youth and Community Center.
He opened his own youth center, emptying his entire savings to do so.
Giving money for scholarships for kids to go to school.
Oh,
I had to keep that up.
He would hold fundraisers to keep the center going, but as his money ran out, George was in danger of losing it all.
The youth center started to take every dime I could get. It started costing everything to get a foundation, lawyer fees, building. I wanted to go out and do myself, and I ran out of money, and that's the reason I even got myself back in the boxing.
13 years after losing his title, George Foreman began the seemingly impossible task of regaining it.
I said, I got to go back into boxing. I asked my wife, I said, what do you think? She said, they're going to kill you. Don't do it.
You're 300 pounds, you're too old. You'll never be champ of the world, because they thought I wanted it overnight. But I looked in the mirror and said, they're telling the truth. I'm pretty old here.
Tomorrow night, veteran boxer George Foreman will put on the gloves and climb back into the ring after almost a decade in retirement.
But I'm going to start from the bottom. I know how to promote. I know how to recreate. I know how to get myself back in shape.
Just as unceremoniously as he had retired, he returned, fighting no-name opponents and journeymen.
So I came back. I got a scale. I was 315 pounds.
Damn, George. Oh my God, George.
That's a knockout.
He still can knock him out.
It should have been. He went against the ropes. Right. I think Howie wants to quit. That's it.
And then when people started to take him seriously because they were tantalized by a charming, fat old heavyweight, I just swooned at their gullibility.
George was viewed as a joke, held up as an example of the decline of the sport of boxing. Cash grabbing on his past accomplishments.
Well, George Foreman wins on a TKO. It is his eighth straight
my man
win.
George looked bad out here, man.
Overweight has been.
They laughed at me. And people wrote me from all over the world, George, don't do it.
Trying to recapture that glory.
Hey, man. Niggas always got something to say when you trying to do something. Y'all heard what they said in the documentary? He was doing this to support the kids. If y'all was out here helping him support the kids, he wouldn't even be boxing. But y'all, why you boxing still? Why you doing this? You shouldn't be doing this, George. Go help him then. Man, niggas, man. See? That's why we can't stick together. Stuff like that. This man out here trying to help kids. Y'all ain't trying to help him.
There wasn't a dime in the mail.
Carefully and quietly, he rounded himself back into boxing form.
They laughed at me, and I fought one fight after another.
Get that money.
One after another. They laughed. The more I win, the more they would joke. George Foreman is not fighting anyone.
That is George Foreman, the 39-year-old ex-champ.
As his competition rose, opponents were dead set on proving the old man was finished.
Yeah, he still has that unbelievable punching power, even though he's got a belly and he looks like he's shambling around in his pajamas. He's still got something.
But here he is, 3 years later, so I have to salute him. Salute him for pulling off one of the great scams in boxing history.
What?
Which, trust me, is saying a lot.
Oh my God, George! Old and fat. He a fucking man. He fucking dude up.
And there he goes. 2, 3.
Oof. It's like he's showing God that he hit him and walked past him on some weird stuff and just God.
Unlike in his first go-around, George was now a fan favorite. His lovable charisma and willingness to poke fun at himself endeared him to the masses.
In boxing, no one is bigger, more admired, or more in demand.
So this is George Foreman, I know.
I think he's got it.
George had become the undisputed king of the big cell.
Because George is very popular, and he deserves the popularity that he's gotten because he's a natural. There's nothing phony about him.
Appearing on magazines, commercials, his own sitcom.
But you look good. You look great.
You only saying that because it's true.
Foreman the boxer was famous, but Foreman the salesman was a phenom.
I was a salesman. I'd learned to be a salesman. I had 10 years out of boxing to be an evangelist, and I understood if you don't really make some noise and make people pay some attention, no one is going to stop and listen to you.
At the peak of his fame, he became the spokesperson for a household grilling product, the George Foreman Grill.
Yeah, see, that's the only thing I know him from.
$5 million a month from sales.
And then all of a sudden, the checks just started rolling in. This thing sold over 100 million.
Right, and to give the check some context too, you end up being bought out, I think, for something like $140 million after what you had already made.
This is my George Foreman family-sized grill that
No, it isn't. It's my George Foreman griddle that cooks pancakes.
Everybody likes a jolly fat man.
Wow.
Well, one thing people love about him, you saw right there, the highest knockout percentage in the history of all heavyweight champions. Part of George Foreman's odyssey in this comeback, up and down the scale. Thus seems like yesterday's weigh-in.
Yes, his first return fight, he weighed 267. Here he is 3 years later, 263. You've heard of the diet formula, what is it, Slim Fast? I think George has developed Slim Slow.
It doesn't appear like George is hitting hard, but once he hits the guy, he totally paralyzes his opponents.
Oof. Oof. Woof.
Perfect timing. Rodriguez goes down.
Fuck Rodriguez up.
Case in point.
Joe Frazier, to capture the world crown 17 years ago, is making a remarkable comeback. Now shaven-headed, he's recorded 22 victories on his way to another shot at the world title.
And it wasn't long before a super fight against heavyweight champ Evander Holyfield was in high demand.
He got another world championship?
At that time,
That's
the biggest
crazy.
payday in
How?
heavyweight history.
George said, I may be old, I may be fat, but he said, here I is.
Mark, with a 28-year-old Evander Holyfield, undisputed heavyweight champion, and for the first defense, he's fighting a 42-year-old George Foreman.
The pundits were convinced the fight was more farce than anything.
So a lot of people made a big deal about this as being a farce beforehand. You think that George, even though you say Holyfield is going to win, you think Foreman has a chance to win this fight?
But it took only a few rounds before no one was laughing.
Well, it's thought, Nigel, that if it goes past 4 rounds, Foreman could be in some trouble.
Because, of course, the whole game plan for Evander Holyfield is to wear George Foreman down.
A drama entitled The Old Guy Hung in There. Took a beating but went the distance, kept coming and trying.
Holyfield blasted Foreman, connecting clean, but Foreman kept coming.
There you go, George. Come on now. We don't mess with Holyfield, no way. Come on.
Seemingly impervious to pain,
George seems to have absorbed those punches in the previous round rather well, Dick.
He did. Surprisingly well.
Foreman ate Evander's best shots and pushed forward, and though he was slow and plodding, his power could turn any fight with a single punch.
Okay, George. Okay, George. Oof.
The first round I gave to George because I think he legitimately hurt Evander the last 30 seconds.
Round 6 scheduled for 12. for the undisputed heavyweight title.
Any who thought the bout was just for spectacle had been silenced.
Those are the punches that are put down. All the heavyweights that Evander Holyfield has faced so far.
Here comes Holyfield, doubling his left and his right.
Okay. Holyfield fighting his ass off though. Oh, that's that 25-year-old speed.
Scoring heavily.
God damn, he hitting him a lot.
George Foreman just took some tremendous shots.
Ooh, there you go, George. Okay, George. Oh.
For the winner by unanimous decision, and still
George did his thing though. You can't knock him.
Foreman, it's trite to say, but Foreman was a winner in many respects here tonight as well.
Ultimately, Foreman was beaten on points, but the way he fought proved that the second coming of Big George Foreman was no mirage.
It was real.
The eighth wonder of the world. Never will you ever see this again.
George,
it'll take 50 years before another generation sees something like this. We're a man closer to 50, 60 than he is to 20 and 19. Show the whole world by going toe-to-toe, and the young man is holding on for his breath. And we keep going. Boy, I tell you, what is happening to the world? All senior citizens around the world can be proud of themselves. Hip, hip, hooray!
That man said all senior citizens can be
I
proud
started
of
to think to
themselves.
myself, George, you've thrilled us. You've been great. You've inspired us. You've entertained us. But now, please, isn't it time to go back to the old fishing hole before you seriously get hurt?
A few days after Michael Moore beat Evander Holyfield, I got a call from George. And I said, George, you can't kid me. You want to fight Michael Moore. And
Who
he
is
said
Michael Moore? He
than
finna beat Michael
anything
Moore
else in the
ass.
world.
When Michael Moore defeated Holyfield to become the new champion, George Foreman,
I ain't
at
never
age
heard of you.
45, would get one final shot.
Man, he finna
I
beat
knew what Teddy
dude up.
told me,
He
like,
look,
this was
hey,
a big con.
I don't, no disrespect to Michael Moore. You can beat me up. I understand that. He look mad NPC-ish though. He look like a NPC. Michael Moore finna get hands and feet put on him. We all know that. I don't know for sure, but I feel like that's what's finna happen.
And I just look at him like,
Go get me a sandwich and sit down.
fake.
Featuring the
Don't he-
clown king
don't
of
he
the
look
sport,
like-
the larger-than-life George Foreman.
Well,
Like
there
a
are a lot
fourth
of
level
skeptics
boss?
out there who think that George
Not the
now
main
is more
joint.
King Khan
Like the one before
than
you
King
get to
Khan.
the big
But George
boss.
hasn't earned this
Middle
championship shot as a fighter. He hasn't fought in a year and a half, and on that inauspicious occasion, he lost to Tommy Morrison.
Hey.
With the fighter.
Yo, I know why I think that. Yo, what is his name? What is his name? It's another boxer that this dude looked like he looked like the created player version of him. I can't think of his name. It's in my head though. Michael Moore looked like the created version of another boxer. I'm gonna put it in the video right here.
He's fighting. He's going to have to punch and try to club him and just keep beating him. But I don't think that's going to happen.
So you see no chance that George can win the fight?
Man, George beat
Very
them
little.
niggas.
Very little.
Foreman looked to become the oldest heavyweight champion in boxing history. But despite the optimism of the crowd, few gave Foreman more than a puncher's chance.
Middle-aged men don't knock out 25-year-old heavyweight champions.
He would be the oldest to win the heavyweight title by a huge margin over Walton, who was 37 when he beat Ezzard
I
Charles.
always thought if the George Foreman from the Rumble in the Jungle had the brain of the George Foreman who fought Michael Moore, that's the greatest fighter ever.
Let's get ready to rumble!
I'm the boss man in here. Take your hands to lunch.
George, how are you going to find
The vibrations are against him, the planets are against him, and already he done lost the first 5 rounds.
But it's revealing that he chose to wear the same trunks on this night that he had worn in the jungle 20 years before.
George Foreman in the shorts he wore that night in Zaire, the Rumble in the Jungle, when he lost his world heavyweight title.
I told you, I'm the champion of the world.
But he always saw the ghost of Muhammad Ali. And
Everybody has felt all along that you're always chasing the ghost of Ali. Does this make you...
I knew it.
20
They didn't even
years
show
after
you the
being
fight.
beaten by
Dude was
Ali,
an NPC,
George
man.
Foreman recaptured the heavyweight championship, the oldest champion in the history of boxing.
Crazy. And he defended his
I'm not
title?
the greatest, but I'm the hungriest. And those guys were younger, stronger, faster, more sophisticated. But the one thing they lacked, and I
Not
had,
the Sonic rings out that nigga. All right, so that was George Foreman, Knockout Kings. This video that I reacted to is from Joseph Vincent. That's what the channel is called. I don't know if they just specifically do documentaries. They didn't have a George Foreman documentary on Rainy Day Boxing, which is usually the channel that I go to. So that's where we got this video from. So go check them out. Subscribe to the channel. They got 1 million subs, so I'm pretty sure they, you know, they doing well, as you would say. Now, yo, who do I like more, Sonny Liston or George Foreman? I honestly don't know at this point. Like, I want to say George because I just watched George video. But Sonny Liston was dope in a different way. Like, George left boxing and came back for the kids. That's fire to me. I know that's not common. Most people wouldn't even think that means anything. But to me, that's important. So, I almost want to go with George just simply for that reason. But this documentary was amazing. Yo, I got so much more respect for George Foreman than I did before this. It's still wild that that nigga named all his son George Foreman. That's crazy to me. But let me know what y'all think of this documentary down in the comments. And once again, man, if it's another boxer you want me to react to a documentary of, let me know down in the comments. It's been Keith versus Star. Peace.